Welcome, everybody. Welcome to the RC Action Podcast. My name is Mike San Antonio, and with me, as usual, is Chuck DeBenelin. Chuck, how are you?
Doing great.
We are finally back. Unfortunately, I've had a lot of stuff kind of happen in my life, and I had some health issues that I had to go through, and then in between that or after that was a little bit of racing where actually me and Chuck got to race together in Kamloops, which is kind of cool. But ladies and gentlemen, we're back. We're back on the podcast. So welcome back, Chuck.
Thank you very much.
How's everything been going down in Vancouver lately?
Oh man, end of summer is always going to be busy. So many different things for RC and just life in general. Because unlike the rest of Canada, the summers here are beautiful.
Yeah, yeah. Yeah, we just had our Nitro Stampede here in Calgary, and it was an awful storm. As actually the Saturday of it was an awful storm, and then after that, it was a massive storm from here to what I think I saw videos of Montreal being flooded. I don't know
Oh,
if you guys got any of that.
no, no. Get a little bit of rain sometimes at night, but then you wake up and it's like, oh, everything's perfect.
Yeah, that's awesome. Well, you know what? I got to race with you in Kamloops. We'll talk about Kamloops. That was a blast with Jason's event down there. It was an off-road event. What did you think of it?
Jason always puts a great event together. He's always on point, very professional, and he can balance the professional side with the having enjoyment side really well. So him and the guys there in Kamloops, they put on a great show. And at the same time, it's always fun going to these events because we get to revisit old friends that we haven't seen in a while, like yourself and myself, man. Like we haven't raced together in almost a year, and that was indoor in Calgary.
Right, right. Yeah, you know what? It was actually it was it was a good sized track. I would say it's smaller, but it was pretty technical, but yet it was quick for an outsider to come learn it real quick and then become competitive right away, which
Just
is
the one
always
part.
nice.
Just the
Yeah,
one part
that's
I
right.
hated, and you know what that part was. That five pack. That five pack was stupid.
Let
Hated
me
it.
tell you. So I'm going to tell the audience out there, I was so excited to race with Chuck. And then, Maria goes and registers me. And then we find out Chuck's in sportsman, which I was just like, I wanted to race against you. And you went into sportsman. You just absolutely killed me. Absolutely killed me.
So I race sportsman because, well, several reasons. First, I'm running an 8-year-old buggy. The JQ buggy is not new. It's been discontinued 3 years ago, and yeah, it's an old buggy. So I don't feel confident enough to race with guys running such old equipment. Secondly, I'm, well, I'm not serious at all. I missed my heats to eat Chinese food.
Yeah. Yeah. Here's the story, ladies and gentlemen. If you don't know, basically I had finished up and Chuck was part of his triple mains and and I said, well, Maria and I are gonna go eat, and he goes, oh, really? Where are you guys going? And we said Chinese food, and he said he looked at Curtis and Curtis Wong and said, you know what? I gotta go eat. I'll be back. How did you end up finishing that day?
So in sportsman, I think I qualified third overall, but because I missed a main, I ended up eighth.
Yeah.
Oh well.
The biggest part of all these races, and I said it before and I'll say it again, and Nitro Stampede was the same thing. We got to see people from all over, which was, what, it's also good to have be around surrounded by people that have the same interests as you and in this hobby, which is you know amazing to be with, basically, and things like that. And honestly, the racing for me, it was pretty good. there was a lot of dust clouds and dust storms from the track, and I was telling some people I remember marshaling, and I was actually had my back turned to the track. Some of the dust storms that came up in that little valley was pretty astonishing, right?
Yeah, it was. It got a little dusty at times. They kept it as packed as they could with water. I was expecting that, having been there before.
Right.
I probably could have driven in a regular buggy and been competitive, but at the same time, you know, competition isn't as high of a priority as enjoyment for me right now. So, I'm really having fun with the hobby. I'm not gonna complain about not making an A main. I'm not gonna like make this laundry list of excuses to my sponsors. I'm
Right.
not gonna start shilling out my sponsors to all these different companies that could potentially pay me. You know, you guys make a lot of money, Nestle, and you make good water too.
Yeah.
No, I'm just having fun now. In fact, on my car bodies, I don't put any stickers anymore.
Right, right. Makes
I,
sense.
right, and in fact, I don't even try to paint my car bodies. I'm using Jiffy markers now. Yeah.
But yeah, you still have your standard colors though, your white and red.
Yep,
That's the
standard
standard.
colors. But again, it's just I'm at the point now where I'm having a lot of fun and enjoying the hobby for what it is.
Right.
Whether we're nerds in a parking lot, whether we're nerds in a building, or whether we're nerds in a field, it's just great to be around like-minded nerds. And that's what I tell people. It's like, yeah, let's be honest, man. We're a bunch of nerds playing with toy cars. And let's just enjoy it.
No, for sure. That's hilarious. And then they have another race coming up, which I actually, when I saw Jason in the beginning of the weekend, was down there. I said, "Oh my God, I can't believe what I'm standing on right now." And
Yeah,
it
you
was
look down.
their, yeah, and it was their on-road track. You've raced their on-road. What's their on-road like?
Their on-road track is great for electric right now. Um, 10, 15 years ago, it was just the right size for nitro cars. Now it's a nice, tight nitro track. My friend Paul's been there several times. I think he actually won the event a few years ago. And we enjoy that track because as a nitro car, you don't realize how much brakes you have to use until you go to a track like that. When you go to a track like Triple R, it's wide open, it's all horsepower. When you go to a track like Kamloops or a track like what they had in Victoria, there's breaking points, and it really makes you
Right.
realize like, oh, this is like autocross in real life. Like it's all about your breaking points.
Yeah, yeah, especially when you have different technical stuff. And I saw the size of the track. I mean, yes, it is considerably smaller, but it is a venue that has like off-road, on-road right beside each other, which, to Jason and the Kamloops guys, they've got a real bonus there being there.
Oh, it's great. And the fact that hotels are like right down the street, it's like, man, like you could just play here all day.
Yeah, I get that for sure.
Yeah.
And Kamloops is like such a big city that's kind of growing. When I was there and driving around, I couldn't believe how big the city's become. I mean, the last time I think I was there was with you and we were doing the Wix series.
That was a good story too. And our first time
Yeah,
in Kamloops together, that was fun.
yeah,
Like I'd
yeah,
been to Kamloops before that, but racing with you, like was it 10 years ago?
yeah,
Right? 10 years ago, we
yep.
went to a Wix
About
race at the
yeah,
tournament capital, which is basically like a track and field place right next to the university. So that
yeah.
was really fun.
Yeah, Jason and the team down there, they put such a good show. And you know what? As an out of towner that comes and visits just once in a blue moon, it's nice to see that he still has it going on and stuff like that, which is cool. And
Yeah,
then
and
you
it
guys
really
have
helped.
yeah, and then you guys had another race in Coquitlam just recently.
Well, for me, my August has been really busy. First, I went to the TCS race, the Tamiya Championship Series,
Oh
out
yeah,
yeah,
right,
just north of Seattle there. So that was a really fun race. It's a Tamiya Championship, so you only get to run Tamiya cars,
right.
which is fine because I have a lot of Tamiya cars.
Yeah.
So
You know, and I
yeah.
used to race in the Tamiya series when it was in Toronto. It was one of the best series. And it was, I think it stretched from Ottawa to parts of London to Toronto, which was kind of cool. But the TCS series part about it is it's almost branded. But I guess if you could explain more about the TCS series.
Yeah, so TCS, it's a Tamiya only series, and it's very strict on Tamiya stuff. Like you got to use Tamiya parts on everything, whether it's like your turnbuckles, your screws. You have to use the spec motor that they're indicating. It doesn't have to be a Tamiya motor, but in this case, it was a Reedy fixed timing motor. And
Right.
again, well, we can talk more about fixed timing because I'm a really big fan of it now. Um, yeah, with a fixed timing motor from Tamiya. There was a spec tire that we had to use as well. It was really fun for me because I ended up buying a TA08 and I hadn't
Mm,
built it completely. So actually, on my way there, I was supposed to go to the hotel room and wrench on this car with Sammy. Sammy from Calgary actually showed up to this
right.
TCS. So I basically bunked and raced with Sammy there, and a few more than a dozen other guys from Vancouver as well. But yeah, basically, it was nice to be in a race where there was so much spec because it really brings to mind um, a respect of the rules and an understanding of you don't need to have the best car to have fun. Everyone just has to be on the same playing field,
Right. Right.
right?
You
And
there there's a lot of talk about actually now that you speak about it, but specking the cars, but you didn't find, I mean, when I was in the TCS series, it was very spec down to batteries, to obviously chassis parts, tires, things like that. What's it like today in today's TCS down there?
Same thing. I mean, if you have not been to a race where spec and tech inspections are done on a regular basis, you might think that the race guys are dicks.
Right.
But, you know, I'm familiar with that.
Right. Right.
We know what to expect on these races. So yeah, they're going to take your gearbox out. They're going to check your gears. They're going to make sure they're not Robinson gears. They're going to make sure that they're Tamiya gears. I'm used to that.
Hmm.
It's what we've done in the past. Even with like the spec racing and Wicks with our Tamiya spec minis, like you can tell when someone's not riding a spec motor.
Yeah. Definitely can tell. Yeah. Yeah, for sure.
Right. So it was
Yeah.
really nice to have that. And then there's also like, a lot of social aspect too, because, during the tech, there's a lot of just, mind games, back and forth jockeying. It's like, oh man, he's out of spec because they're, whatever. Just a lot of BSing. And it's fun.
Right.
I found it fun because I hadn't actually raced this car until the very day of TCS. I was up all night drinking beers and building it. So
Right.
yeah,
And the bodies, what bodies do they use now
has
too?
to be Tamiya bodies. Yeah.
Nice.
So there's something to be said about a Tamiya body. I actually tried racing Tamiya bodies against modern scale spec bodies like US GTs.
Right.
Aerodynamics just so different and they're so
Yeah.
much heavier, but
Yeah.
the detail is there. They're beautiful scale cars. In my industry, I tell people all the time when you build the Tamiya car, you're building a model and then
Right.
you're going to have the enjoyment of driving it.
Yeah.
Um,
And one of the classes I used to love was well, I guess back then it was the 19 turn class, which was the modified class kind of. And then the my biggest class back then, which I don't think they run anymore, is the Nitro on road. Do they still have that in TCS?
Not at the one I went to. I know that
Right.
TG10s are still around and there's
Yeah.
people who still run them as a class, but in the Seattle group that I went to, there was no TG10 Nitro class.
Hmm. You know what? Like as far as the bodies are concerned, I know they're heavier. I have probably, I want to say about four of them that I
Yeah.
still kind of kept from the TCS series that are unpainted and haven't been used, and they're heavier. But you need that when you're on pavement and concrete, right? I think it just gives you a little bit more grip and a lighter body. I mean, it would be great, but the problem is you want to be planted around with those kind of cars.
Yeah, depending on setup. Like I made the mistake of trying Tamiya bodies on my express cars.
Right.
Um, and then I was like, you know what, this is not working. Let me go back to like an Exotech or a Bawa body. And right off the bat, I was like, whoa, I'm like 3/10 of a second faster every lap.
Yeah. And
So
this
three
thing,
tenths
you,
doesn't sound
you
like a lot to the average person, but if we're racing, the people that know, they know that 3/10 of a second is a lot.
and you were saying this was in Seattle on the American side then. So TCS Canada, come back. We need you. We need you back in the scene. I know I have a lot of friends, and one of my upcoming guests, probably in a couple of weeks or a month or so, is going to be a guy from Toronto, and he's still a hardcore Tamiya guy, and I hear that they're running Tamiya series down there in Toronto as well. So, yeah, TCS is awesome. Borgerfeld, if you're listening, we want you to come back, bring back TCS. What about you just also had, what was the next race that you went to, Chuck? Was a Quitlam
Next
race.
race. So the weekend after that, there was the Triple R Summer
Oh,
Challenge.
yes,
So
that's
that
right.
was the big one in Vancouver for on road. That's where they got
Right,
the 200 plus foot racetrack that runs nitro. They run nitro 10 scale, so touring cars,
right.
and they run nitro 8 scale. So like the big giant pan cars.
And how many people showed up to that one?
Um, I didn't run this one. I wasn't part of the organization of it, but my guesstimate, I think there was like about, let's call it 120 entries from 70 dudes.
Right. That's cool.
Right. So again, like
That's
it's
good.
really weird to call it entries because when I run races, I try to measure it by how many dudes or unique users. Just
Right,
because
right,
in what we do, we typically only get one entry per person. Some places get multiple entries per person, so they inflate the entry count. Like, oh, hey, we got 100 150 entries, but there was just 30 dudes running 5 classes.
right. Yeah, no, I get that for sure.
So
And
yeah,
and,
like
and
let's call it what it is. Like it was a big one for us, anyways.
right. Well, that was good, and obviously it was a good turnout. It was like a 1 day event or something like that.
It was Friday set up and practice. Saturday was all the qualifiers, and then Sunday was the mains. And the mains are
Oh,
nice
cool.
because the nitro mains are 30 minutes, and that's a fun
Oh,
sight to see.
wow. Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. Watching nitro cars at for 30 minutes. That's in on road. Off roads is a little bit of a different animal, but on road is you have to be. It's like 12 scale carpet for half an hour, which is crazy.
Yeah, there's that, and then the whole aspect of the pit strategy, what to do if there is a flame out, what to do if you chunk a tire. Because man, when you chunk a tire in nitro, your car reacts a little bit differently. You can still drive, but you may not be able to carry that same speed, and you might have to drive a little bit different into those corners.
Yeah, no, for sure. And what race was after that one in Vancouver then?
Right after that one, the very next week, the one that we just the weekend that's just finished here, I was RDing the Cam RC race. So Cam
Right,
RC Coquitlam Classic. That one was about 140 entries from 65 dudes.
right,
So yeah, that was a
hmm,
that was a relatively big one for what we do in BC.
right. Well, that's good.
Yeah,
And
not as big as
and
the big barn, which was several months ago, but this was
right,
a pretty big one that it drew people in from the island and from the interior, and it was a nice one too. About I think I did 30, 34 mains on the Sunday, including a
wow,
30-minute Nitro A main and a 15-minute Nitro B main, and there was triple A's as well.
wow, that was wicked. Yeah,
Yeah.
we just had our Nitro Stampede. It's like for those of you who don't know, here in Calgary, it's kind of a staple event in Calgary. Um, I know when I wasn't even living in Calgary, when I was in Saskatoon, it was always my go-to race. It kind of had obviously everything 8 scale. 10 scales, and it brings out people from Calgary, you see Edmonton, a couple guys from Vancouver as well, and then obviously Saskatoon and sometimes Winnipeg, but Winnipeg actually didn't show up this year, which was kind of a bummer. But good thing was that we have gone through some weird weather here. I think the weeks before the Calgary Stampede, it was just blistering hot, and then suddenly I want to say the Saturday, it was just a heavy downpour, and
Oh yeah, you guys had to
yeah.
ration all the water in Calgary for like almost a month.
Yes. Well, the one thing in our track at Gears is that we were running off a pond for the longest time, but that pond is slowly diminishing. And so we've been bringing in water, and it's been kind of a battle between bringing in water, getting water brought in, even on a Saturday, using it all up and stuff like that, and then the dirt drying up in different portions and stuff like that, and
I think it's like
you know
crusty like pie. Yeah.
yeah, and but you know what kind of like the outcome was is that obviously everybody's going through the same problems and the same issues with the tracks, so it's not that one person's got an advantage over another, and it really threw things up in the air, which was kind of nice to, you know, who's going to take this all, because who's going to survive, all the different ruts, and as the ruts grow, and who drives around the ruts and who drives through the ruts better was a good question. And Pete Tozer ended up winning for the buggy, and Pete Tozer and Navaz, both out of Calgary, Kyosho and Associated, they showed a good battle, and then it was just insane how it ended out. But Pete really had control over his car the whole run, and I had to watch the whole thing from the sidelines, because unfortunately I was more running the race and helping cure fires, and I actually missed one of my qualifiers for my truggy because I was just so busy trying to put out other fires in other places. But the good thing was the event ended up really spectacular at the end. We had to kind of run things like an army, I would say, on Sunday, but everybody came on time, and it was just magical to watch us run the last qualifiers, and then the triple mains, and then the half hours of nitro, which was kind of cool. So
That's good. And you bring up a good point too. Like on a main like that where the track will become less ideal,
right.
setup plays a big role, but I think driver experience and a wily veteran like Pete Tozer
Yes.
knows what to do in that situation.
Right.
I noticed it as well in CalRC where like, you know, some of the new guys that were like working on their setups had good cars, but in the main, anything can happen. And
That's
someone
right.
with a lot of experience like Mike Mercer ended up taking that win because
Right.
he knew what to do in a lot of these different situations. So that
Yeah.
was really cool to watch. It was a really close battle between two fast guys in BC, Mike Mercer and Mark Starling. So yeah, it was really fun to see that experience actually played a very huge component in what happened in that race because both Mike and Mark are very experienced, and they don't drive bags of garbage either. That's the key thing. Like
Right.
a
Right.
balance of both. Like you got to have a good, decent car, and you got to know what to do in so many different situations. Yeah,
Yeah. And groom tracks, like big races, and I unfortunately don't know what the barn was, but groom tracks and things like that, they're great. Don't get me wrong, but when the ruts start coming up, that's realistic. That's realistic to the club level. That's realistic to most places outdoor for off road. And
it is. Like you
if
see those tracks in Philippines where it's just covered in syrup, and it's like it looks like an on-road track with jumps.
that's right.
And I'm like,
That's
oh,
right.
that's so beautiful. And then
Yeah.
they have their own caddies. They have their caddies to marshal for them and fix their cars while they're sipping on Mai Tais. That's great.
That's right. That's
But
right.
that's not
Yeah.
realistic for us here.
No, that's and, and it doesn't matter. Saskatoon, Calgary, Edmonton, um, you know, Kamloops. I've been to it all, and parts of Ontario. It's all the same. They get rutted by Sunday, and I remember when I went to a race in Vegas in the club race, the Vegas guys had told me, Mike, come Sunday, it's going to be so rutted. I'm going to tell you right now, this corner is going to be awful, and I'm like, good, because that's what I'm used to, man. And as soon as the ruts started coming out, I was just like, woo, I'm home. I'm home. I know
Yeah.
what this is
Yeah,
like now, right?
we're used to garbage up here, man.
Yeah,
The brown.
that's right. That's right. You know, but
What are
yeah,
these AstroTurf tracks that you're talking about that are like perfect every time? Like, what's going on? It would be cool to drive on something like that, like an AstroTurf track or a track that's covered in syrup that has caddies in every corner. But
yeah.
the reality is,
It was funny because one of the guys here in Calgary recently asked me, Mike, what's the best way to practice for these big races? And I said, you know what? When you go to practice, like on a practice day, if you can go early, if you can go on another day, go. But and he said, well, the problem is there's no marshals. And I said, the best thing to do to practice is practice like there is never marshals. And Maria's on the radio with me, as most of you have raced with me. And sometimes she says to me, all right, there's no marshal in that corner right now. They're fixing another car. So you gotta be easy. And that's the thing people need to not kind of do in racing. And I think a lot of the biggest problems when it comes to the racing aspect versus the practice is they begin to overdrive because they feel like that pillow is there or that cushion's there.
yeah. I've had people ask me like, "Hey, what's the best way to not crash in a race?" And my answer is, the best way to not crash is to not crash.
Yes, yes. Yeah, yeah.
It's
I'm
like,
trying
do
to
I need to change my
remember.
setup? Do I need to run these tires? No. You just need to not crash, and then
Yeah.
you won't crash.
Oh,
It's
yes.
such an easy concept to understand, but it's very difficult to grasp.
So yeah,
Um,
yeah, or do in the
what
heat
to
of the
do,
moment, right? Yeah,
right? Yeah.
yeah. There was one point at Nitro Stampede where I found guys chasing me, and I still can't remember who it is, but it was two guys chasing me, and I said, "Oh man, they're chasing me really hard," and I can see that they were over driving in two corners. And then we got to the big jump, and I said, all right, I'm going to send it, and just before we get to the big jump, I'm going to slam on the brakes. And they sent it so far and overdrove this car so far, I was able to make the turn, and they were too busy getting marshaled at that point. And that's where I said to the person that asked me about driving, I said, you can't overdrive even if it's a big race. Pretend like there's no marshals, because it
Yeah.
takes 5-6 seconds to get marshaled, where if you actually slow down, you'd only lose like half a second here, half a second there, until you're confident, and then slowly kind of move up the pace, right? And
That's
beat the
something that I
times.
tell people when I'm race directing as well. Like, do not yell at the marshals because they're not the
Yeah,
ones that flipped your car over. You're
right.
the one that flipped your car over,
Yeah,
right?
that's so true. That's so true. And
Like,
I've had marshals come up to me after, and they're like, "Mike, man, I'm sorry I didn't get quick enough." No, dude, that was my fault, man. I freaking overshot
yes,
that time.
you
Nothing
gotta
to do
own
with
it.
you, right?
You
Yeah,
gotta
you gotta
own it.
own. That's right. You gotta own
You
it.
crashed
That's
the
a
car.
big
You
thing.
gotta own it.
Yeah, that's a big thing, which is a hard grasp for a lot of people. But you know what? At the end of the day, practice makes perfect by driving like there are no marshals, regardless if there's marshals there or not. And I said to him, the next time you go out, listen to your lap times, and the less you crash, you're going to actually improve your lap times better, right?
I've been told that I do a lot of baby jumps. Like, I don't send it, and that's
Yes,
because it's a
that was
conservative drive.
Kamloops. I saw you at Kamloops with that 5 pack. I was so angry with you because you were like onesie, onesie, onesie. And I'm like, dude, even I twosies and threesies, and I was trying to send it for four, but I couldn't send it for four.
No, but it was consistent. It was consistent
Yes.
laps, and that's why I went there. I wanted to have fun and finish under my own power without having to get Marshall assisted, and I was
Right.
able to do that just by driving conservative, maybe too conservative, but
Right.
no crashing. That's a good standard.
And I guess going back to the races, what race is up for you guys next down there?
Next race coming up in about 3.5 weeks, we have
Yeah.
an event at a local Subaru at the Don Dockstetter Subaru. It's going to be a race at the actual dealership, and we're going to try something a little different. Just because of all the cars around, we can't go high powered crazy like 5.5 mod cars. We're
Right.
going to do it a Tamiya only thing. So
Oh,
Tamiya
right.
GT1, GT2, and then the Pro Spec. So every car that's out there is a Tamiya. So there's a limit on capability, and every car out there is going to use a fixed timing motor, whether it's a 17.5 fixed timing or a 21.5, depending on the class. Like I
Hmm.
said before, I'm a really big fan of these fixed timing motors now because, not every 17.5 motor is the same, right?
No.
And
No.
with fixed timing, at least it narrows down this huge disparity. Like, one motor might have more torque than the other, but you can be geared the same way or geared differently to compensate. And, there's only so much power that can be drawn when they're all fixed timing. Because, yeah, like,
Right.
you know, guys, I'll tell you online, like, Mike was surprised. He's like, Chuck, how much timing are you running on my motor? I'm like, okay, well, you see when you turn the can and it stops? And he's like, yeah, okay, push it farther.
Right. Right. Yeah, you lent me a motor for 21.5 when you were here, because I remember here is the story. I happened to borrow or I got a motor from Dennis Beck out of Saskatoon for 21.5. And he said, Mike, this motor, it's just a motor. It's nothing spectacular. It'll get you into the class. And I said, fine, I'll take it. And Chuck came down and you had a 21.5 sitting in your pocket and that you weren't using it, and you said, here, take my motor. And I was astonished. I could not believe this motor was super quick. It felt like a 17.5, and it was balls to the wall, let's put it that way.
Yep,
Yeah.
yep. I've tried running that stuff in at my own home club. One car, same motor, three classes. So it'll run
Right.
scale spec
Right.
21.5. I'll run in touring stock 21.5, and then I'll cram in a bunch of turbo boost and run it in modified. So I
That's
can
cool.
have one car, one motor, one package, and I could just have fun in three classes.
That's cool. That's cool. And
It's
when
not
is this?
going to win mod. By no means
Right.
is a 21.5 fully boosted is it going to
Right.
win, but it's going to be fun.
And when is this event in Vancouver?
I think it's the second weekend of September. So yeah, in about
Okay.
3.5 weeks.
And sorry, where did you say it's at for the viewers that are
At the
maybe
Don's
interested?
Dockstetter Subaru. It's part of the Subaru Club's local event. We're
Right.
going to be part of that by having a little bit of a racetrack there and yeah, basically exposing what we do, which is remote control entertainment to a bunch of Subaru guys.
Right. That's cool. That's
Yeah.
cool. You, yeah, our the next event I think we're going to be having, well, in Alberta is OCD in Edmonton, which,
Yep.
for me, Edmonton's always been they've always put on a very, very technical track in a smaller space. But mind you, don't get me wrong, it's big. Don't think it's small or anything, but very technical and very hard. The only problem that I see with Edmonton all the time, and I think it's the luck that when I go, is it always severely rains either Friday or Saturday, and then they do something to repair the track Sunday, and it basically is a mud pit. But
Yeah. If you want to bring the heat into Edmonton, all you got to do is wear a Calgary Flames jersey. Calgary Flames jersey and just walk around Edmonton. Be like, yeah, what's up, guys? Or a Maple
You
Leafs
know,
jersey. Maple Leafs jersey might attract more heat.
yeah, no, well, but granted to the team in Edmonton, Randy Van and Jeremy Letke and all those guys down there, they're a bunch of great guys. They put on an event that it feels cozy. It feels like obviously everybody knows each other, but it's real dirt racing. It is mud. It is all kinds of stuff that you get into, and we get so, again, going back to the groom tracks, we get so used to this groom track stuff, but
Yeah,
you know what, that's where the initial RC dirt racing came from, real
it's old
dirt,
school.
right?
It's old
Yeah.
school stuff. Yeah.
Old school. Exactly. So, granted, Mother Nature doesn't like us here in Calgary, but Edmonton, same thing. But those guys know how to revive no matter what happens. And for the last, I think, 2 or 3 events that I went to Edmonton, all of them have been somewhat. So one of the 3 days is a rain out, but it always finishes up Sunday, nice and clear and going. So I'm hoping that I'll be able to make it to Edmonton, and kind of that's my plan. And I know some of us are kind of planning for Edmonton coming up in, I think, I want to say 2 weeks from now, which is going to be a big event. But it's OCD 2. It's a second one of the season, which is cool. And if you have any questions about their event, obviously talk to the Edmonton guys
Two
up
weeks.
there. Yeah,
Is that the first weekend of September then?
I I want to say it's the last weekend of August. I think.
Okay. Nice.
Yeah, but obviously check out their website. The Edmonton RCRE group,
I'll just yeah.
and
I'll look at
you
the
can.
calendar because I really want to do the Kamloops race as well at the end of the month. So
Yeah, which is,
that's an
to be
on-road
honest
race.
with you,
That's really cool.
I know, and Chuck, I really wanted to go to that too, and that's the problem. I obviously have to support my Edmonton crew at the same time, and I love Jason too, and I know one of our guys from Calgary is planning to go to Jason's event, the on road event, because I really wanted to run Nitro on road. I haven't run it in like,
Yeah, man. You
God,
got to do it.
yeah,
Unretire that old serpent. Come on. Let's go. I'll be your pit guy.
since yeah, since
I'll be
my
your pit guy.
serpent days. I know,
Fast
I
pit
love it.
stops right here. Fast pit stop. Boom. Pew, pew.
You know, and for me, I guess the best part about all this racing, on road or off road, is the amount of people who transition over from both sides, on road and off road, which is kind of cool, because when you see those same people transition from on road to off road and kick ass in both categories, it's pretty amazing to see. And a lot of people do it, and there's a handful of people who don't. They only do one or the other, right? And I know one of the differences for a lot of people on road is it's too much setup, it's too much this, and then in off road, the complaint I always hear, it's dirty. But I got so much carpet fuzz on all my Osmatics, I can't even tell you how much carpet fuzz I got.
And that's the reality of it too. Like it can be dirty, but with the tracks that we are experiencing in Calgary and well in Alberta and in BC, a lot of it is just dust. Like an air compressor
Right.
takes care of it, or a paintbrush takes care of it. It's
Yeah.
different if you're gonna run in mud. Oh yeah,
Right.
for sure, it's gonna get really really icky. But if it's just dust, it's not bad actually.
Yeah.
In fact, like you said, it's comparable to taking all the race pubes out of your car after a run on black carpet. Yeah.
Yeah. There's so many times I've taken apart my Osmatics, and I said, "How did this carpet fuzz get in between, this bulkhead and this chassis? Like, how? How? I don't even know. You know what I mean?" But yeah. So
Yeah.
I guess, yeah, for us, coming up is OCD, and then do you guys have any races after the Subi race coming up
Um,
as well right now?
I think that's when the outdoor season really winds down, and we're pretty much gearing up for indoor with overgear racing. So
Right.
that'll be
Right.
uh, that'll be nice. And again, in overgear racing, we've last year we had a lot of success by introducing an introductory class, not novice,
Mhm.
because I'm not a big fan of having a novice class because the whole point of novice is to get out of novice. When you have a guy
Right.
sandbagging in novice for 2 years, it's like, dude, what are you doing? You're just
Right.
beating up
Yeah, for
children,
sure. Yeah. Yeah.
right? But yeah, the introductory class, which is essentially what Mini used to be in Calgary and Edmonton as well. Our introductory class is TTO2.
Right.
In TCS, it's called GT Pro Spec. We call it TTO2 class, and we follow all the rules. It's like Tamiya only stuff, fixed timing motors, and it's working really well. It's grown the club in a huge way because we now have a proper transitional step. Because when people jump into scale spec now, like man, like if they jump into scale spec and they're in the same heat as you and me, oh,
Mhm.
hands up, might as well give up. Done.
No, I get it. Yeah, for sure. And I guess for us here in Calgary, coming up soon is car reopening for the winter. And
Yeah, yeah,
unfortunately,
right.
RC Gears is going to be closing down. But in car, there's a lot of talk right now, which they're just talking about
Yeah,
spec motors and 21.5 motors. And I know for you guys down there, you guys just recently changed course classes, I guess, in stock.
yeah. 21.5 for stock now, and it's been like that for the last couple of years, and it's really, really good. Um, the reality is again, 17.5 motors for an internal track, they're just too bonkers,
Right.
right? Because I mean, I was always like, man, like stop being wussies, just drive 17.5s. Now,
Mm.
like, if I can run a boost at 21.5 in mod, that's these motors are getting faster.
They're getting faster, yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
And it's funny, it's technology, right? The technology of all this stuff just keeps getting better and better. And I think that's what's, obviously causing it.
I mean, back in the day, like when we had 19 turn motor as the stopgap between 27 turn and modified, it ended up being the same thing. Like, like, oh, 19 turn motors, they're faster than stock motors, but they're not like mods. By
Right.
the end of it, like we had like Komodo dragons and like, you know, they were just like these were mod motors, man. Like I could run a 19 turn in 19 turn class and in modified class. It was like,
Yeah, yeah.
like these motors are constantly evolving and they're constantly getting better. All you have to do is look at the amp draw. They're just drawing
Right.
more amps now. They're not efficient, but they're drawing more power.
Yeah.
So
And the 17.5 classes, I don't know. Like I've talked to my buddies in Toronto and stuff like that too. The 17.5 class has gotten ultimately faster, and everybody in everybody has kind of moved down to the 21.5 because the 21.5s have gotten faster. And then it gets to a point where new people feeling like this is too much. 17.5 is like too fast, and then I watch when those 17.5 guys back off and they go to like what we have right now is the USGT 21.5, and then they feel so comfortable. And so that's why I think a great move, if car moves into 21.5, um, you know, will open up the newer people and say, okay, now I can run in this class. I feel a little bit more comfortable. I can kind of gain momentum now. Where
yeah,
21.5 to 17.5 was like boost or no boost, or
it's
mod to
happening again
stock.
to us too in
Right,
the indoor club because
right.
we've now mandated scale spec USGT as fixed timing because the 21.5 motors are now getting too fast.
Yeah, and we were talking about that, me and you, the other day. The other thing you guys said too, which was good because I saw a comment of, you know, well, if we go to 21.5 um, locked, there might be a motor issue, but I think you guys solved that by kind of opening it up to anything locked 21.5, right?
Exactly. I'm part of the board at Overgear Racing, and that was a good discussion that we had. It's like, well, what do we do with this fixed timing thing? Like, Are we speccing a motor? And it was like, no, we can't do that for a couple of reasons. First of all, we can't look like we're being partial to one company. Like, that's not
Right.
what they're doing. Like, they're not paying us sponsorship money to say, hey, you got to run these motors. It would be
Yeah.
cool if they did. If they
Right.
just gave us like 100 motors, that sure would be cool. The reality is they're not. They're not going to do
Right.
that. So we're like, how do we level the playing field, and at the same time, how do we make it fair? Because if we went with brand X and only a couple of dealers or only one dealer was able to distribute and sell brand X,
Yeah.
it looks like we're helping that guy and that guy only. And if there was
Right.
brand Y, same thing. Brand X would say, hey, why are you guys going with brand Y? So we decided
Right.
it's open to any fixed timing motor, because one might have a little bit of a difference versus the other, but it's helping to narrow that gap, and it makes it fair for everyone. Because I could walk into, well, I'll put it this way: I can't walk into Action Hobbies and ask Pat for an Orca. Pat's not an
Right.
Orca dealer, right?
Right.
That's just the reality of it,
Yeah. No.
right? But if
It
you
makes
walk into
total
Action
sense.
Hobbies and you ask Pat for a fixed timing motor, Pat's got a couple solutions, and he can get you a
Right.
fixed timing motor based on what you're looking for, based on what he can provide.
Yeah. And you know what? What you guys are kind of rolling out is you know rolling out the carpet. I hope other cities take it to heart, because I saw the one comment our boy Jesse actually put, Jesse from Vancouver, which was, it'd be nice, a guy like him and myself and yourself. We're all guys that travel city to city, and it'd be nice if all the cities kind of started becoming equal and same throughout. That way, you'd get more inter racing people, like, right?
100%, because it
Yeah,
makes it easier for travel. I
yeah,
made the mistake of going to one of the races at Car last year with my stock car, which has a 21.5. It was able to
right,
hang in there in the trophy race, and it made the B main. But I'm like,
right,
man, I could dust these guys, but they're
right. Yeah.
overpowering me just that much on the straightaway because they're running the same motor I have, but it's a 17.5.
No, I get that. Yeah. And I guess, that's why I hope other clubs who are listening and stuff like that start to realize that the more inter racing that we could do by, you know, kind of, um, I don't know how to say it, but make it smaller, the 21 fives or something like that, and make it kind of across the board. It'll be way a lot easier for people to travel, and more people to come all the time.
Yeah, 100%. Again, like a standardized set of rules. Yeah.
Yeah. And then I guess for uh, on road racing for carpet, there's obviously us over here, you guys down there. For this year, I know Edmonton, they are running carpet off road, and I know Winnipeg. Sorry, Saskatoon. First of all, they have their carpet indoor track, and they always do one big event, and then obviously they have their dirt track in the wintertime. And then in Winnipeg right now, they're kind of rebuilding, but they've rebuilt on-road pavement right now during the summer, which is kind of cool too. So for those of you who are looking for tracks all around Canada, we're starting to find them. They're all starting to pop back up, which is good, and bring back the scene. And hopefully a lot of novice people start kind of bringing up and coming up to the events, and
Spec racing,
kind
man.
of putting foot there. Start racing, right?
Spec racing is where it's at because that gets things started. Even the indoor off-road club has done that, and they've done really well. They've introduced the spec slash, um, which basically means if you're gonna get started, you don't have to buy an X-ray. You don't have to buy, like a Schumacher. You can start off with a slash, which you can pretty much get at any hobby store,
Yeah,
right?
yeah,
And
for
that way
sure.
it becomes a lot easier to get into this hobby and to immerse yourself. If you don't like it, whatever, you bought a slash, you can easily flip that on Facebook Marketplace. If you get into a hobby and you buy a Schumacher, good luck selling it on Facebook and recovering all
Right.
of your cost.
Oh yeah, for sure. Yeah, sometimes people dig too deep where they don't even know if they want to get there yet.
Yeah.
But it's always nice to start from somewhere and start from scratch. And for those of you who like just like me and Chuck have
No
been
offense to
racing.
Schumacher, just first thing that
No,
came to
no,
mind.
that's right. Just no, and it's true. I mean, for those of you who are like me and Chuck, who are, you know, let's call us veterans and been there for a while, it's always good that we welcome the new people, and it's always good for the new people to ask a lot of questions. I mean, a lot of people I know back in my day when I was just starting, it was really tough for me to just even ask a question, but you know what? I tell everybody, just ask me. It doesn't bother me at all, and take what people say and input it into your own. But the more you kind of learn off of people and veterans who are out there, the more you kind of realize, hey, there's somewhere else to move up and move better, and so on and so on. But it doesn't mean go out and buy the best vehicle on or off road right away. Sometimes just start somewhere, start at the bottom, and move your way up and see how that goes.
Absolutely, I'm a big proponent of that. And when someone's starting out new, they find, hey, this is a used car. This is a great thing. I'm like, be wary of a used car because you're getting something from someone else, and that's going to be, it might have a bit of a bias to it.
Right.
So anyone that's starting out, I strongly recommend that you buy new and that you start with a spec class because then you have an objective opinion and you can see things for what they are. If you
Yeah.
buy someone's, you know, old touring car, well, why are you switching to this other touring car and dumping your old one? Are you really
Yeah.
going to get a very honest and objective answer? No, you're going to get the answer that he wants to tell you so that you can buy the product. It's
Right.
just keeping it real, right?
Yeah. The other thing I know, and I know when I started, I was buying a lot of used stuff, and the don't get me wrong,
Especially
we
transponders. Never buy a used transponder.
yeah, we know that one already. But the problem, or the where I saw the versus new now is when you build the car, and as you're going through the manual and building the car from scratch, you sometimes get to see, oh, and when it breaks down, you go, oh, I remember how to unwind this so I can get the shaft out or the C cup out or the drive cup that's broken. But when you buy a used car, you just go and start running, and now you're panicking because you broke it, and you don't know what you need. You don't know how it comes apart. And
You
the
don't
nice
even
thing
know what's
about
in the diff. You don't even know
that's
what
right.
it's in the diff.
That's
Yeah.
right. So that's why I think sometimes what Chuck's saying is, buying a used car is not always the answer, is because it's nice to build the car from ground zero, see how it gets to an actual car, so that when you're at the track and something goes wrong, you can easily diagnose it based off, oh, okay, I see it's broken. I remember I just removed these four screws and the diff cup comes out, right? But picking up a car you've never seen before, never touched before, and then panicking trying to fix it, oh man, it was the worst.
Yeah. And there are good used cars out there. Don't get me wrong, but I mean,
Yeah.
buyer beware. And,
Yeah.
the best way to not get turned away from this hobby and get an actual raw perspective is to build your own car.
Yeah. Yeah.
Build your own car. You get an understanding, you get the appreciation of it, as opposed to, hey, I'm buying this guy's car. This guy was fast. Ergo, I will be fast. It's like, well,
Yeah.
there's a lot more to it than that, especially if you don't know what you're doing and you don't know setup. And that's the main
Right.
thing. You got to
Right.
know how to set up your car. And the best way to do that is to get a car, build it up, or
Yeah.
keep breaking the car that you have and keep fixing it. Whatever. Don't matter to me. Live your life. Whatever.
So I guess Chuck, just looking at the time here, is there any other shout outs or events that you want to put out there coming up for you guys in Vancouver?
Nothing really. I mean, I'm just having a good time, just enjoying RC. I haven't done a lot of racing this summer. One of the reasons
Right.
why is right here. You can see that. Boom! Look at that thing. Look at that
Let,
beauty. That's a
let's bring
juggernaut,
that up.
buddy. That
Pick that up. Let's
okay.
have a look at it. I gotta see this a little bit closer. This thing is gorgeous. I've only seen pictures. Oh my god!
It's a TXT from Tamiya, fully done
Right?
up. It's aluminum chassis, and then I got my paint job on there. It's great.
Yeah.
I walk around with
There's
this
the
on my shoulder
colors.
all the time. Yeah.
That thing is absolutely gorgeous. You know,
And it's got these
talk about
dualies. It's got these J Concepts dualies. J Concepts, wonderful tires. Jason Rona. I don't mind. I'll send you a check with my signature on it, blank. A void check. I'll send you a void check, Jason Rona. J Concepts.
Jason, it will bounce. I'm just letting you know that check will bounce. He sent me the same check. It just bounces. Don't even bother opening the mail. But that thing is gorgeous. That thing is absolutely gorgeous.
Yeah,
You
I've been
you
having a
I
lot
need
of fun just bashing around and doing a lot of crawling on the summertime because the
right.
reality is sometimes it's hot. Staying on
Yeah.
a parking lot that's like
Yeah.
35°C
Yeah.
for like 8 hours, I'm like, man,
Right.
I need air condition.
That thing is absolutely gorgeous. You know, that's the other side of for those of you who don't know Chuck, and he has his little blobs that he puts out with all these builds, and you got to follow him with all his stuff. But I always follow your stuff, and
Yeah,
I
check
saw
me out
I
on
s-
YouTube.
yeah,
2mmRC,
that's
2mmRC, and I
awesome.
call it that because the 2mm wrench is the most common thing that we're using.
That's so true. It's like the
Yeah,
10 mil of the Hondas, right?
right.
Yeah, yeah. Right. Oh, and like I said, for those of you who are in Alberta, OCD in a couple weeks, check it out. Randy Van and Jeremy Letke, props to you guys. That event's coming up, OCD 2. RC Gears will be, as the season starts dwindling down. Unfortunately, here in Calgary, next step is for us is Car, which is going to be opening up soon. I'm hoping to hear dates very quickly and very soon. Um, so yeah, with that being said, Chuck, thank you again for being on the show. Uh, you know, I'm probably gonna have this show up again in a couple weeks, and you brought on all this TCS stuff. I think I'm gonna bring on a TCS guy for you. So let me see if I can
Cool.
get a hold of him and see if you guys can talk TCS. But for those of you who are watching, thank you very much for enjoying our podcast,
Thanks,
RC
Mike.
Action. Thank you. And Car RC Gears, Graphic Works, thank you very much. We'll see everybody in hopefully about 2 weeks from now.